Hey guys, welcome back to Remove Before Race, and I'm back here at Affalterbach. Luckily, the weather's okay this time. This is, of course, the home and HQ of Mercedes AMG, and we're looking at a very special car, one that I think possibly could be the best entry-level AMG that money can buy, and that is this, the new AMG CLA45 Matic. So guys, when we first looked at the A35, it felt like a super transformation versus the standard car. And the same is true when you go from the standard CLA to the CLA35. So when I drove the CLA45S, you were kind of expecting that same hit of super performance beyond the 35. But at least in terms of sound, that wasn't really the case with the 45S due to new laws and regulations and stuff. Undoubtedly, the car is an absolute monster when it comes to that awesome new responsive four-cylinder engine. And of course, the dynamism of the actual handling of the car being so neutral with the 4MATIC Plus and the drift mode you get, it is undoubtedly an animal. But when you compare it even to the 35 on sound, it's kind of lacking. So that got me thinking, how does this new CLA35 stack up as an entry-level proposition to the AMG brand? Now this is a point that we mused over in the standard CLA220 video as well, because that car was pretty exciting just as a standard car. And I was thinking, how cool would the CLA35 be? So let's explore this car today and just go back to basics a little bit. A few years ago, your entry-level AMG for this type of shape of car would have been the C43. Now, of course, the C43 in its current version is a V6 turbo engine car with a 4MATIC system, so very much, I guess, like a 35 or a 53 flavored C-Class, but really not sharing that much in its genetics with the C63, the big elder brother. Whereas when you look at the CLA35 and compare it to its predecessor, the flagship CLA45, it actually shares a hell of a lot with that car, and it's almost every single significant component. Let's start with the engine. Of course, you've got a 2-litre 4-pot in the previous CLA45. You've got a similar configuration engine in this car, albeit with less horsepower, but we've got a twin-scroll turbocharger, just like in the new E63S. This car also carries on the same size and type of brakes as the CLA45. So the 4-link rear axle from the previous CLA45 moves into this car as well. We've got the 7-speed gearbox as in that car with race start function as well, but perhaps most crucially, we have got 4MATIC just like we had in the CLA45. In fact, it's the same type of system where you've got a 50-50 split depending on how you're driving. So the driving dynamics very similar to the previous flagship. So essentially, what you're getting is the previous flagship CLA45 in an entry-level CLA35 today. Then you come on to the design of the CLA35, and I think this compounds things even more. You compare it to the previous flagship 45, and essentially you've got a very, very similar design. You've got aggressive AMG-style air intakes, a nice front lip. You've got the twin-bar grille as you had in the previous 45 versions as well. The rear, I think, is where it becomes really interesting, though. I really like the new rear diffuser with the big round pipes on the back. I like just generally the look of the rear of the CLA Coupe. I think it's probably the best coupe that Mercedes make at the moment. Just in terms of style, it looks really good. You add the aerodynamic package, it compounds things even further, looks even then closer to the CLA45S, both in the front and the rear. Now, speaking of the CLA45S, where the A45S benefits massively versus the A35 is it gets a wider front track with significantly wider front arches. Whereas on the CLA35, because it already had a wider track versus the A-Class, the CLA45S doesn't get that wider track. So as a CLA35 owner, you kind of get the same body width and size as the flagship car. So this is a bit of a bonus. The CLA45S, although it looks absolutely incredible on the front, in terms of pure size and wheel arches, you're getting the same thing in the 35. Now, of course, you also get a shooting brake version. I'm a huge fan of estates and shooting brake. And, well, I want you guys to decide after we've had a drive in this and you've heard it, which version of the car you prefer, and I want you to comment below on that. I think I would probably go for the shooting brake on these cars. as I do with most. Now, one other bit that I do want to address is how the AMG specific grille is coming onto 35 vehicles, and that is going to start with the new GLB35 that you're going to see soon on the channel. Now that of course has that grille. It's confusing for a lot of people, but I'll make clear for anyone who doesn't know today that every single AMG car going into the future is going to have that grille. So I suspect when this CLA35 and the A35 are facelifted some 2-3 years in the future, you can expect that grille to wind up on these cars, and you'll end up with something that looks something like this. So do not be surprised when you start seeing the AMG specific grille on the 35s as well. Now, we've explored how the outside is very tasty. It looks quite similar to the 45, but this only compounds when you go inside the car. So let's check that out right now. So inside this car, like we discussed in the CLA45S, if you blindfolded me and sat me in either a CLA35 or a 45S, right now I would not be able to tell you which car I was in, because essentially the trim level is identical, especially if you're in Germany. In the UK, because we don't get these lovely performance seats, you'd be able to tell. But in Germany and the rest of the world, how would I know the difference? You've got the same beautiful Dynamica and Napa leather steering wheel with the AMG controls as well. You've got the exact same screens in front of you, all the designs available as you have in the CLA45S. Your trim level in terms of your leather is identical. The trim here is identical. I couldn't tell you which car was different, and I am an AMG nerd. Now, this is a big bonus for CLA35 owners, because as far as you're concerned, internally, you've got the exact same experience as a CLA45S owner, which is great. But for a CLA45S owner, it's not so great really, is it? I think there should be some differentiation, but today is about CLA35. So for me, this is a big, big bonus. You have got the same interior as the flagship car. So now all you're weighing up is which engine do you want, which sound do you like, which car is better for you daily. And that's exactly what we're going to do when we're driving the car today. We're going to see, of course, the CLA45S is a more dynamic car, but we're going to see in terms of pure passion and daily driving, car sound, which of these two cars is more compelling, just for entry level into the AMG brand. Now, let's see how this actually sounds on the run, because you cannot judge most new cars anymore on how they rev, because they're all limited because of laws. You have to actually drive them hard and see how they respond to you on the road. So I already know that the A35 has good handling in terms of its steering feel. Steering feel is always very good on modern AMGs. Despite being electronic racks, we find the feedback that you get from said cars to be excellent. Really, really good steering. Listen to that engine. Matic system, also very powerful on this car. Same type, 50-50 split on the Haldex 4x4 system, and it works really well, you know, for a daily system, picking up traction both in the dry and the wet. Push it too hard, you will get understeer, just like the previous cars. You know, point and go fun. It's brilliant. It's you know, it's as much as you need. All the technicalities of the CLA45S are great. It makes the car such a nice neutral handling car. Of course, you got the drift mode as well. But then, is that needed? I mean, surely the point is all of this. It's just point and go fun, easy. So we must talk about then the sound. First of all, I like this gearbox. I like the 7-speed. It's as good as it was in the A45. It's a responsive box, not too many gears, not too much thinking. Then you pair it with this wonderful engine, and it really feels like an AMG. That's the thing you get from these new 35s. You jump in, you start the engine, you start going through the gears, and it feels properly AMG. Now in the CLA Coupe, you benefit from the same slightly higher dashboard. It all feels like you would feel in the C43 Coupe. I really like the seating position in this car. It all feels a bit more cosseting than the A-Class, certainly. The suspension is a bit better, perhaps due to slightly higher weight compared to that car. But where it really comes alive for the owner, I think, is how good it sounds. The way that the upshift bangs and then the little crackles you get afterwards, just like the old CLA45. You can hear the exhaust just as I play it. Listen to that. It sounds brilliant. And that's just playing it lightly with my foot just on overrun. And we weren't getting that in the CLA45. You get a lovely upshift as well, just like the old 45 series. And this is what I was talking about when it comes to pleasure of driving. You seem to get just a little bit extra in the CLA35 despite not being as dynamic. You know how important is sound for the AMG customer? It's super important. So when you've got something that can, you know, play sound like that, it means a lot in just a daily driving aspect. And I feel that if I wanted a car like the CLA and AMG form, I didn't want to spend the extra for all the dynamism and the lovely front end that the 45S awards you, then I would be very happy with the CLA35. It's my pick of the bunch, I think, out of all of the entry-level 35 AMGs. It's got the looks, it's got more sound than you get currently out of the CLA45S, but in a package that is just as rewarding. I mean, all of this, it's just like the CLA45S. I think where you get the benefit of the 45S is where the power begins to fade out in the 35 because of the amount of horsepower it has versus the 45S. You get that huge boost out of that 421 horsepower beast, and of course the car is that much more dynamic. Again, but for daily use, this is what you want. And really, how much of the dynamism of the 45S is the average owner going to experience? I would say not that much, and you're going to value the sound that much more, in my opinion. I love this car. It's a feel-good car. It looks amazing, sounds great, properly looks like the previous gen AMGs, which arguably were the best looking ones. I mean, look, you share the front end with the C43 DTM rather than the GLB35. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that look at my reasons behind loving the CLA35, perhaps most out of the compact range, as the most accessible entry-level car and the most stylish one. When customer CLA45Ss come out, I hope to review that car again in the UK with the UK press department. Until then, if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe and share it. And I've got a bit more time with this car, and I'm going to enjoy it out here in the apple fields of Affalterbach. Bye.